morning, brothers and sisters.
Good morning.
Please rise.
It's a little cold, but we're going to begin with warming up with the worship in our songs. Everybody, please rise.
Sing aloud, Hosanna to the Lord. Offer everything with humble heart. Come attend the Lord, oh rejoice in Him who brings new life to all the world. Let us so determined to seek and find all the promised glory of the Lord. There we sing the songs in the garden fair, songs of freedom bright with happiness. There we sing the songs in the garden fair, songs of freedom bright with happiness. There are clouds of darkness on the path, sinful night enveloping the land. Brush the clouds aside and behold the light that shines in beauty everywhere. Let's go! Let us go, determined to seek and find a new world, a joyfulness and peace. There we'll sing new songs in the garden fair, songs of freedom bright with happiness. There we'll sing new songs in the garden fair, songs of freedom bright with happiness. All my brothers, all rejoice today, you who sing a song of our new life. Offer praise on high, blessed forevermore, as chosen people of the Lord. Let's go! Let us go, determined to seek and find all the brilliant glory of our King. There we sing new songs in the garden fair, songs of freedom bright with happiness. There we sing the songs in the garden fair, songs of freedom bright with happiness. We uphold the standard of the Lord to restore His true ideal. Freely give your love, share the Father's joy, and music will return to you. Let's go! Let us go, determined to seek and find harmony within the garden cry. There we sing the songs in the garden fair, songs of freedom bright with happiness. There we sing the songs in the garden fair, songs of freedom bright with happiness. Father's dwelling place is the fountain of our life, drawn to the light of the eternal day. We abandon the darkness, may the word of God in my heart resound, so eternally to receive His love. We shall be His pride and delight, children of the living God, into the world of Eden regain. Let's go marching together. His pride and delight, children of the living God, into the world of Eden regain. Let's go singing together. Our Father's dwelling place is the eternal paradise, where the blessing He had to reserve will be freely given. May the word of God in my heart resound, so eternally to receive His praise. We shall be His bride and delight, children of the living God, into the world of Eden regain. Let's go dancing together. May the word of God in my heart resound, so eternally to receive His praise. We shall be His bride and delight, children of the living God, into the world of Eden regain. Let's go dancing together. As the deer panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after Thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship Thee. You alone are my strength, my shield. To You alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship Thee. You're my friend, and You are my brother, even though You are a king. I love You more than any other, so much more than anything. You alone are my strength, my shield. To You alone may my spirit yield.
Please join us in prayer. Heavenly Father, Heavenly Parents, we thank you, Father, for this new day, this new week, this Thanksgiving week, Father. We pray that we can hear your word through our brother Andrew Love speaking today, that also we need to die in ourselves, to be reborn in your love, to receive your gift that you want to give to all mankind and to make a one world under you, and to please our Heavenly Father and our Heavenly Mother, our true Father and Mother, our Mother on this earth, that we may accomplish and really build this kingdom that you've been dreaming for since the beginning of time. We repent that we're not enough, and we want to thank you and offer all our praise and love through our song and our hearts and our sharing today. We thank you for all your blessings and gifts and this Thanksgiving here in America and around the world. And we pray these things in all our names before you, in Jesus and our Heavenly Parents. In the name Mitchell B. and the Blessed Central Family, Jew, in our names.
Jew. Let's give a hand to our band for opening us up today. You may all be seated. Yeah, this morning I just drove from Connecticut. I was at a friend's place, and on my way here, the first song that started playing was As the Deer. And it's such a beautiful song, isn't it? It says, you alone are my strength and my shield. And it hit me so much just because God is unchanging. God is unyielding in his love, and God is always going to be there. If you trust God, if God is your source of love and God is ever present in your life, then you will never lack. And so it just hit me driving up this morning and just hearing once again from our choir. Let's give a hand again to our choir for opening us up today. And with that, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunday service. How are you all doing today? Very good. I know some people didn't get the memo, so probably at 10 o'clock we'll start to see a lot of people trickle in. So just be on the lookout to maybe shift a little bit to make some space, just like how you have Ozawa over there. There's going to be a lot of people who might have to sit in the middle. But that's what's going to happen right now. There are a couple of announcements I need to make. But first of all, today I believe is Bergen County. Bergen County volunteers, they're preparing food for us. They welcomed you in the front. Let's give a hand to Bergen County. And also, at the end of service, our tithing's usually at the end of it. So during the closing song, we have our offering boxes right in the front here. So feel free to come up during our closing song as well. And with that, we have a couple of announcements. Thanksgiving celebration. That's what's happening this week. This coming week is going to be Thanksgiving. How many of you are going to fly out to your family or go visit families elsewhere? How many of you are having family visit you here? Okay, so hopefully we'll have a more full service next week, Sunday. But on Thanksgiving Day, November 24th, that's Thanksgiving Day, Heavenly USA, together with Clifton staff are hosting a Thanksgiving celebration here. A Thanksgiving celebration. So this is for anybody in the community, whether you're a member or not. You're invited to come to the church here on Thanksgiving Day. There's going to be food. There's going to be an open mic night. There's going to be some games. There's going to be time to just connect and bond with each other. So this is happening on Thursday evening, but they do recommend just bringing a potluck, bringing some kind of dish so we can all share together here. So that's Thanksgiving Day for anyone at all. You can also bring your family. Maybe you have your Thanksgiving gathering at lunchtime, and you can join in the evening. Starts at 5:30 p.m. This will go out in your newsletter. So once again, Thanksgiving Day, you're not alone. There's a community here to celebrate with you. And also, next week Sunday is going to be a Thanksgiving service as well, and it's a little bit special. We're going to make it, it's going to be an incredible Sunday service, but one thing that Dr. Young wanted to relate to everyone here is the culture of Thanksgiving. So Dr. Young comes from Korea. And in Korea, there's Chuseok. That's their Thanksgiving. And what he wanted was, or what he was referring to was, in the past, you'd have farmers offer up their best produce of the year to God on that day. So if they owned a watermelon patch, it was the best watermelon was offered to God on Chuseok, on the day of Thanksgiving. If you own sweet potatoes, your best sweet potato was offered. And so in that spirit, he was thinking of what can we do within our community to replicate that, to offer something sincerely to God. And we thought that possibly just your best dish. That's right. So next week, Sunday, Dr. Young and our ministry staff are inviting you to bring your best food offering to our Clifton Church so we can all celebrate together. We're going to have some outdoor seating, so that means that everyone finally gets a chance to sit down and eat a meal. Isn't that new? We're going to have some outdoor seating as well as indoor, and all the rooms will be replete with chairs and tables to eat, but we ask for every family to just bring something, an offering from your family. Especially if you are from a different culture, I think that's something that we'd like to celebrate together. And that's happening next week, Sunday, and there's going to be a lot more happening, so please be on the lookout for more news about that in your newsletter. And with that, we're going to go on to our meet and greet. So can I have everyone just stand up? I need you to go to someone you haven't seen before, or someone you haven't seen in a while. Greet them, tell them you love them, and ask them how their week was. Just everyone, this is your chance to meet someone new, talk to someone. Just go around, mingle, not the same person every time. And show them a nice jacket. All right. I think we've had enough. You guys are having your lifetime conversations right now. It's not the time for that. Fellowship afterwards is when you can talk a little bit more. But hopefully you're able to meet someone, greet someone you haven't seen in a while, because there are some people who you haven't seen in a while who we're going to introduce shortly. But yes, let us all settle down and wait for the wave of people that'll come soon. All right, so with that, I hope you're all doing okay. I hope, your week's been great. But with that, we're going to go to just the very first part of this. Yesterday, something happened here. Who knows what happened here at Clifton Church yesterday? That's right. That's high noon right there. High noon. We have people who flew all the way from across the country, and in some cases across the world, to just be here to talk about high noon, life without shadows. And you know them. They've been here many times, and this is an initiative that's been going on for many years on this serious topic about integrity in your sexuality. And so I'd like to first introduce, I believe, the founder of High Noon, Dave and Mitsue Wolfenberger, to come up on stage and introduce their team. Let's welcome them up.
Thank you, Fred, and thank you, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here again. We remember last time we were here, we felt so much love and hospitality from your community. And this time we wanted to bring a program specifically for young adults, because young adults especially, they are encountering such a great challenge in sexuality with the internet these days. And this afternoon also we will have a program for parents and for children. Because who here is, who's a parent or a child here? Okay. All right, now let me ask you this, all right? How many here have talked, either children talk to their parents or parents talk to the children about pornography other than the time when they got caught? How many? Wow. Okay. Well, if you come to the program this afternoon at 1 o'clock, it's going to be a 3-hour program, and we are going to be talking with parents and children, children 10 years through high school, along with their parents, and we'll be giving a program for the both together, and then for parents to how to talk to your children about porn, how to break down those barriers, and for children also, how to talk to your parents. So I'd like to introduce the rest of our team. Andrew. Okay. We have a small team, okay. Andrew. Andrew's our head lecturer, and he'll be giving the sermon this morning. Came from Denver, and Mitzi and I from Washington State. We'll be going back this evening. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Dave. Yeah, so what's happening? It's this 1 o'clock conversations with your children upstairs in the Magnolia Room. It's going to be about, I believe you said 3 hours long, right? It's around 1 to 4 o'clock, and it's an opportunity to start talking about the things that you don't get a chance to talk to in an environment that makes for you to be able to talk about it. So that's what's happening, 1 o'clock upstairs, 1 o'clock upstairs in the Magnolia Room. And with that, we're going to go on to our musical offering. So can I ask our choir to join us on stage? And while they prepare for that, let me just look through a few things that I might have missed. What's happening on Thursday this week? That's right, Thanksgiving. So, and who's organizing that? Clifton Church and Heavenly USA. It's going to be a day of fun, a day of excitement, so feel free to just join in as well. It's going to be great. I believe Dr. Aguilar is also supporting them to bring a lot of food, but please also bring something small to share with everyone who is joining on that day. And on Sunday, what are you bringing? Your best food, that's right, the best offering that you have. Maybe you make the best burgers, maybe you make the best sashimi. Please bring whatever you got. Whatever you have, I'm sure Kimi and Dr. Yo will be very happy. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to our choir for our musical offering.
Dream need to find a place. Guide us with your grace. Give us grace so we'll be saved. And now with this faith, which is in our hearts, we can feel that we'll be saved.
Thank you, choir, for offering such a beautiful song to us. And with that, we're going to go on to our main message from today. He flew all the way from heaven. That's right. He came down from heaven just to speak to us on these principles. He was, I believe, one of the main speakers, or the main speaker for one of the main speakers for the High Noon program that happened yesterday, and will continue on today. He's, I believe, a former comedian as well. Some of you know him. Actually, a lot of you probably know him. He's going to be speaking on the 5 pillars of High Noon, and I believe they are honesty, accountability, grace, integrity, and courage. Let's welcome up Andrew Love.
Hello? Hi. Hello. I was just thinking, which one is the real me, this me or that me? Because when I'm dead, that's going to be the only thing left over, right? Is this one. So which one? I don't know. It's too much. It's like Inception. It's too much. It's too much. Do you mind if I sit for a bit? I'm 41 now, so, you know. Yeah, please. Respect your elders, guys. Just want to start slow, and then we'll build up. I'm from Denver. Well, I live in Denver. So that's like a mile up in the sky. So it's like heaven, right? Just way colder. So I'm a part of High Noon. The Wolfenbergers are the founders. They're one. They really are one. So Uncle Dave is louder, so we think that he's the founder, but they really are extremely complimentary. And do you guys remember Uncle John Williams? He was hire number 1. He was the director, and he was the director of a website. And then I was hire number 2, and then he was the director of me, AKA my babysitter. And then my job in the beginning was to go around and start a conversation that wasn't happening, which was about pornography. People just weren't talking about it. It was everywhere, but yet it was nowhere because nobody's talking about it. And that got me into living rooms and churches, and we started just in America, but then we soon started to we went to Korea, spoke to the Global Top Gun, which was 1,300 kids from 79 different countries. And then we did a tour of Korea. Now we've done 3 or 4 tours of big district churches in Korea, little teeny tiny churches with 4 ajumas in the, it was really small events. We've been to, the Wolfenbergers even went into Japan through the back door. We've been to South America. We've been all over the world at this point. And we have a very unique perspective wherever we go, because whenever we talk, we open up, again, a conversation that isn't typically happening. And people want to respond in kind by sharing their testimony, talking about what's really going on in their life. And it's simultaneously the quickest way to get to know somebody and to love somebody is to know what's really going on in their life. And it's invigorating, but it's also sometimes heartbreaking, because it's so sad that sometimes we're the first person that they've ever told this stuff to, right? And we should really be having this conversation as a community. A community isn't just people in a room or people in a geographical proximity. It's give and take to the deepest level that we can access. That's how you really generate this loving feeling, this feeling of belonging, this feeling of knowing the people in your community. So that's been our perspective since we started. And this talk that I'm about to give, I personally was a pastor 2 times, and I felt it very awkward that I had to give, wisdom to people who knew much more about life than me. It's kind of an awkward situation. So I don't want to come as like this know-it-all weenie, from outside, from some mountain place. I'd love to just come and share what we've all experienced is the culture that we're trying to create as High Noon. We used to be educational based and go around with PowerPoints and try to convince people of living a certain way, right? And people would be like, yeah, it sounds good, but, I'm kind of doing my own thing here. So they weren't necessarily sold on it. So at a certain point, we decided to let people experience what it is that we're talking about. And that's been our priority, especially this year as an organization, is to let people experience the culture of High Noon. And that culture is what I want to identify today. I got up, see? Get fired up. And that's High Noon. And True Parents talked a lot about this High Noon culture, and we've been experiencing it. And we're fighting for it like crazy as an organization in our own lives, but wherever we go. That's why we came here this weekend, is to give young adults the opportunity to be free, to be honest, to be clear, to be in the High Noon light, which is really like no shadows, no fear, no shame, nothing. Because that stuff all blocks us from experiencing Heavenly Parent and freedom in a real meaningful way. Okay? So, yes, we used to fight problems. Back when we were talking about pornography exclusively, it's like, let's go get the bully, let's go attack it, let's go fight it. But you're in the bully's territory when you do that, and you're going to lose. You're going to run out of steam. The bully has a lot of friends. The bully has a lot of money, right? There's a lot of underworld. There's a lot of history there. Instead, we wanted to create a counterculture where we can strengthen ourselves. How are you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. So now that's really our priority, okay? So everywhere we go, we never for a second claim to be perfect or better than anybody. We're just more focused on truth, on admitting when we're making mistakes, getting past that, creating the culture where God can really permeate and dwell, okay? So, can you please read this?
High noon is the time of the brightest sunlight. There is no darkness anywhere, only brightness pervade the atmosphere. It is a condition of fullness. There is nothing lacking. Reverend Samuel Moon.
Yes. So there's so many words like this. You can look, if you just type in, High Noon in tparents.org or something like that, there's a lot of words. But what we're noticing is the similarity between True Parents' description of fullness and what psychologists and what healers of this era are talking about is connection. The idea of being fulfilled is there's nothing, your heart is full. So why would you seek after some fake alternative, which is what we do a lot in this world, right? Is look for the substitute because we don't have access to the real thing, okay? What we're doing presently is we're noticing that when people experience what it's like to tell the truth for the first time, to receive grace for the first time, right? A lot of us refuse to receive grace because we refuse to tell the truth about ourselves to the people in our lives. So we're blocking access to our hearts, right? But when we create the path for freedom, it's like breathing air for the first time, to be honest, right? It's like coming from this metropolis filled with dirty air and then going to Alaska for the first time. It's a different experience. And that's what our soul feels like. Our spirits feel so free when we can actually experience freedom. Does this make sense? I'm trying to speak as clear. I don't want to be fancy in my words. Sometimes I get too fancy and then I confuse everybody, including myself. I just go cross-eyed. So I just want to really speak plainly because, whoa, what's up with that? Refer to this side if you want to read the top of the slide. Sorry. So the first part is vision. This has been, again, we've been doing this for about 6 years, and we've been iterating and learning and trying to refine the process so that we can help people go from a place of kind of being slaves to bad habits and to their limitations to transitioning to freedom as quickly as possible, to expedite that process. And also to clarify what freedom looks like so that they can make the choice with as much information as possible, okay? So the first part is vision, because without a vision, the people perish. And I would say that most people lack a strong and clear vision for their life, especially in the area of sexuality. This has been our specialty, is sexuality. And so it's a very reactive experience, either based off of the immediacy of what your body wants or based off of fear or doubt, but it's always a reaction rather than, am I in line with the vision that I've created for myself, for my life, together with God, right? So there is no vision in the shadows, and that's, again, we're in a society filled with shadows. Where secrecy, it's much easier to keep a secret than to confess in our society, right? And especially in a religious community where there are stakes, because there's kind of like expectations that we're going to live a certain way, and if you don't, then there's a lot of shame that comes with that. So then when we hold it, then these are, again, accumulative shadows. And when you're stuck in the reactionary world of shadows, of just worrying about other people finding out about who you really are, then you can't really have a vision, because you're spending all your energy protecting your skeletons in your closet. Does this make sense? There's so much like damage management energy being spent rather than creation energy of creating a life that you're really seeking after. That's that reacting energy. It takes so much mental resources because you're worrying. You're hating yourself for making these mistakes, not being the person that you want to be. It's so resource heavy that there's very little energy left to create the life that you want. And you can start to feel like a stranger in your own body, in your own life, where you just don't like who you are. You start to resent your situation, your family, and so on and so forth. It seems really impossible to live like this for too long. But that's where a lot of people dwell, to be honest. So conversely, in terms of a vision, I would love for you to imagine a world where we share our mistakes with one another. We don't carry the load on our own shoulders, right? Can you guys imagine that? I hope that you've experienced that, at least on some occasions. But this is a muscle group. Telling the truth is like a muscle. Imagine where personal pain was met with grace, where if we make a mistake, we told somebody and they loved us regardless of our mistakes. If we could experience that unconditional love from our spouses, from our children, from our parents, from our communities, yeah? Where there is no shame whatsoever in our communities, where we chased shame out with pitchforks, yeah? By aggressively loving people. Again, not the sin, but the sinners. That's an old adage of love the sinner, not the sin. We prioritize honesty in our families and in our leadership. We've noticed that our movement, honestly, because we've talked to leadership all around the world, we don't really have the mechanisms for dealing with what happens when leaders make big mistakes. It's usually reactionary because we're not anticipating how to have difficult conversations like this. So it's usually a reaction, right? We talked a long time ago to leadership about like what happens if a leader, a top leader, bottom leader, any leader gets stuck or they get busted watching porn in an office. We have no plan for this kind of stuff. So it's case by case, right? But imagine that we prioritize honesty, and again, we will figure it out. Doesn't mean we have all the answers, but a commitment to figuring out based on honesty and truth rather than hiding. And what if our movement always reached our goals because we had 100% integrity and we are people of our word? Because sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, because we have lofty goals, but sometimes we overcommit and underdeliver. Anybody experience that? Yeah, even in your own conditions, like I'm going to wake up at 3:30 and I'm just going to crush it. I'm going to witness to 1 million people. And then by noon you just want to nap, you know? And then you're like, "Oh, there's that show on Netflix." And then we know. We know how that goes, right? So the second is becoming. So the vision and then becoming. So you cannot give what you do not already have. We want to save the world, but are we really saved? Do we walk around with full hearts? Because, when you walk around and you see people who are hungry, people who are starving, people who are, maybe homeless, and we want to help them, but we don't have the resources to necessarily do so, it feels like all you have left is like warm wishes, right? And the same goes for love. If we walk around wanting to save people's hearts and connect them to God, but our connection is barely hanging on to God, our Wi-Fi signal is very weak, to God, then we can't really give much to other people, right? I was noticing, I had a great conversation yesterday, actually, about bandwidth. My wife dealt with some very severe postpartum depression and spiritual stuff and all this after our second son. And she was barely hanging on. Every day she was barely hanging on. And she did not have the bandwidth to be a loving person at that time. So she was really kind of mean to me and our kids. She was not particularly loving at that time, right? Because she didn't have the bandwidth. She could not give love because she didn't have it. She was just barely hanging on. And so it took years, and now she's doing so much better. But now she has more bandwidth, so she's a completely different mom for our kids. She's so much more loving. She touches me a lot. I love touches, right? And it was a tough few years where I had to find my own way of coping with that, with community, with God and real connection. But I think we as people a lot of times prioritize giving when we fail to do an inventory of, do we have enough to give? Are we filled up enough to give? So I think we even use the word perfection a lot. I think we misuse it a lot in our movement, semantics, but it's not really about perfection in the sense that we normally interpret perfection. It's much more about permission, the permission to not be perfect, to be a work in progress, right? So the idea of forming a vision, I think, is scary for a lot of people, of like the life that you really would love to say, this is what I did with my life, right? You know that old saying of like, being born is like a gift from God, and what you do with your life is your gift to God, like the things that you do with your days. So to formulate that vision is sometimes confronting because we might seem really far off from that vision. But by not creating a vision, it doesn't fix anything, right? You're just kicking the can. So to formulate that vision and then to have the courage to admit where you are at in respect to that vision, and then to do the process of taking steps towards that vision, that's how you create true joy. But it does require that you have a vision and that you can admit that I'm not perfect, I've made mistakes, and then move beyond that. When you lead by opening up, people really want to follow, right? So again, with High Noon, our greatest strength is just the culture that we're creating by exemplifying everything that we talk about. I'm very open about the good and the bad in my life with the people who care enough to know, and they return that in kind. And there's not that many places where we can share on that deep level, to be honest. And we want to create that space everywhere we go. So when you open up, anybody with kids, if you would love for them to share deeply with you, are you also willing to share deeply with them about your fears, your insecurities, your wins, your losses, all that? It's powerful to do so. I highly recommend it. Because a lot of times we lecture from up here and we don't listen from here, right? But when we show people, it's a lot easier for them to be like, oh, that's what it is, right? Rather than charts and graphs and ideas and theology and stuff like that, it's really good to have feet on the ground and show people. So the last thing that I really wanted to get into is the detail of the High Noon culture. Because what we realize is that when people go from, again, being slaves to an addiction or a habit to being free, there are many factors involved in that, and everybody's on their own journey. But there are 5 non-negotiable virtues that we've seen in every single person who's made that transition from being a slave to being free, to being emancipated. And those are the 5 High Noon virtues, okay? because we're meant to be the owners of Chanel Guk. That's the assumption in the family pledge, is that as the owners, that's how it starts, as the owners. So the assumption is that we have already reached that. And ownership is really about taking responsibility, right? And that responsibility comes, I think, when you really start living these 5 virtues, okay? So these 5 virtues, please consider them to be muscles. I think when a lot of people look at these 5 virtues, they think, oh, I'm not that, I'm the other, or whatever. They think it's binary. You are or you aren't. And what we're trying to convince you, based on our experience, is that it's a muscle group. All of these are muscle groups that need to be developed constantly, every single day, okay? To really have freedom, to really experience freedom in your life, to really restore your value. Because when we look at so many people in the eyes, they've lost hope. They've lost that fire. They've lost their feeling that they're worth anything at all, right? Especially when they're carrying shame. Shame wants to tell you, it's whispering in your ear 24/7 that you suck and that you don't deserve love. Nobody will love you. Just separate yourself from your community. That's why so many people end up leaving churches or families or whatever, because they say, I'm unlovable, right? And that's the exact opposite of the truth. It's the exact opposite of the truth, right? So to restore your values, to restore these 5 virtues. So if you're weak in these areas, please look at them honestly, but then know that you can get strong in them, okay? These are the 5 ones, and you guys can take them in. I'm going to get into each one in detail because they're worth explaining. Okay, so that's honesty, grace, integrity, accountability, and courage. And again, these can see, Nancy Jubb heard that I was coming here, and she's like, oh, you just sound like Brene Brown, and this is not a copy of a copy of a copy. This is like, we've put a fire to the way in which we help people, and the raw elements of healing include these things. They're non-negotiable elements. These are the raw ingredients of a healthy life. So the first one is honesty, and that means, first of all, to restore your word. If you're feeling like a lot of us, if we've kind of done something wrong, to get back on track is to just confess as quickly as possible to a human being, to God, to yourself, okay? Because it requires us first and foremost to be honest with ourselves. That's where it starts. And this is not an easy task, because I think we have a lot of things in our life that we might regret, and that regret over time festers and permeates and turns into shame, and then when we think about them, we feel ashamed of ourselves. I failed as a parent. I have 3 little kids, and they're still young, and still some nights I lie awake and I'm like, have I screwed up? Is it too late? I think we all have that fear, but to get honest with yourself, and that means the good stuff too, to admit the good stuff that you've done. Next is to be honest with God, to have really honest conversations about your fears, about your doubts, about your hopes. I think a lot of us are too modest to admit that we have personal desires as well. Everything's public, nothing's personal, but it's important to be honest about the whole bag of wax. And next, to be honest with actual real people. Again, this is non-negotiable. If you want a really powerful life, to tell people your fears, your doubts, all the dark stuff liberates you in ways you can't even imagine. But also to express your hopes and your dreams to real people allows those things to start to be manifested in real life, because now your words are out there. The whole entire universe started with God's word and saying, this is my desire, okay? And then from there, we started to create life, right? Or he, they, God. So I think a lot of people, this is where a lot of people fumble. They might be able to be honest with themselves. Some people, even that's hard. Maybe with God, but with real people, that's where there's a lot of fear. Kids have a really hard time disappointing their parents. Parents have a hard time talking to each other, husband and wife, right? Having honest conversations, but it's non-negotiable. If you want to be free, you must be honest, okay? Next one is accountability. So letting others know the contents of your heart, guys. your heart is in prison unless it has a way to express itself, okay? So to be accountable is learning how to say what's going on inside of you to another real person, okay? So the good stuff, again, your hopes and your dreams, goals that you have for your life, and where you fall short. We help people with addictions, okay? And so this is constantly learning integrity, and we're going to get into integrity through accountability. So it's like, here's the person I'm fighting to become. And if you tell somebody when you start drifting, that's the fastest way to get back on track to your ideals, to the person that you're striving for. But it's so hard to tell people when you screwed up, especially if you've done it many times, because you want to hold on to it because you feel so bad about it. But holding it in just makes everything worse. Talking about it with a real person, having accountability for the good stuff and the bad stuff is the only way to really continually move forward in your life.
Sorry, there's a red Honda Pilot right outside. I heard there's a police car there too, so it doesn't get towed. If anyone has a red Honda Pilot parked.
Just be
right out
honest
there.
if that's you guys. You can get
Red
up
Honda
and walk.
Pilot.
We won't judge you. There's no shame in this room. So if that's your car,
Red Honda Pilot.
red Honda Pilot. No. Okay, never mind. So we really, a lot of times are stuck in a prison of our own making when we're just stuck in our head. And we try to sort everything out by ourselves. I'll figure it out. That's not how we're designed. We're meant to be connected to families, to communities, right? So to sort things out with other people is the natural order of things. Again, if your family's struggling, to talk it out with other families, other people in your circles, not to try to just fix it in your family. We lack power, we lack oxygen when we don't connect to other people. Other people give us new air, new life by talking about it. The good stuff, again, the good stuff too, and the bad stuff. So questions that we ask people who really want to go from, again, being stuck to being free is, well, what do you want? This is a question I've been asking. It's such a stupid, basic question, but it's a question that very few people can answer with clarity. What do you want? If not this, you can identify the problems in your life, great. But if these were all gone, what would you be doing? And we're so addicted to focusing on the negatives that we don't know what a positive looks like sometimes. Especially if you've been obsessed about some area in your life that's not working. It's like, oh, because of this reason and this person and this, and then you spend so much energy on this. This has been starved, the positive. So what do you want? What does an ideal life look like? When I was a pastor, I kept on asking every theologian, anybody who would talk to me, was like, what does Chanoguk look like? What are we trying to build? Who's paving the roads? Who's picking up the trash? What does this look like? No answers. I got a lot of I think robots, like AI, I don't know. Because we haven't really invested in what is this going to look like? There's a lot of scary stuff happening in the world, right? If we're honest, geopolitics, all sorts of stuff. So that can consume us to such an extent that we have no creative energy to be like, what are we building here, right? So what do you want? By when? If you're shooting for some goals, can you admit that you want to, because when you say by when, then there's stakes now. Then there's something at stake here. There's your word is at stake. So it forces you to kind of get a little bit uncomfortable. That's good. Because if you're comfortable in pain, that's not good. But if you're uncomfortable in trying to strive for something, that's very good. That's growth. That's what growth feels like internally. Next, how do you think you'll do it? This is usually wrong, and it's something that you refine, but you have to, it's like a thesis. What's your thesis on how you think this is going to happen? And then God will usually give you a sharp left turn or a lot of, oddball circumstances, but you can refine this as it goes. But if you keep on trying this, that's how you keep on, that's your proposal for what does life look like if it's going well. And it helps you when you have accountability to increase the value of your word, because a lot of times, if you guys know both of these people, somebody who says something and they don't do it, when they say they're going to do something, you don't believe them in your heart. I'll meet you at 5 o'clock. You're like, no, you're not. In your heart, you're like, you absolutely are not going to show up at 5 o'clock. So you show up at 6, and they're still late at 6, right? That was my best friend in high school. She would say, yeah, I'll see you at this time at this place. And I'm like, no, absolutely, no, you're not. I'll see you next week, whatever, right? But somebody who has their word means something, they have full integrity, when they say something, spirit world, everything moves in their favor because all their money's on that person's going to do it. And you just know that they're going to do it because they have full integrity. So that you need accountability to practice building your integrity. Because a lot of us, we don't even believe our own word. If we've lied to ourselves enough time, the value of our own word is, right? Oh, I'll wake up tomorrow at 5. No, you won't. You know deep in your heart, no, I'm not. I'll try. You say, I'll try to wake up. No, you've already failed. You're like, are you or aren't you? Jesus would spit that out of his mouth, right? Lukewarm. It's like, no, are you or aren't you? And when you can really practice that and live up to it, then your word has value in this world, and God can really put his money on you. Grace. This is something that is tough. And I want to unpack it a little bit. But it's what allows God's love to flow again. When we withhold grace, we clog love from existing in that relationship, and then God cannot work through us. And other people can't experience love, and we can't experience love. Okay? So you cannot give what you don't have. This is, okay, anyway, I'm getting crazy. We need to learn both. Learning how to receive grace, learning how to offer grace to others. We want to do this constantly. We don't want to do this, especially very idealistic people. All we want to do is talk about how terrible we are. I'm not enough. I suck, right? That doesn't really help God to experience loving you fully so that we can love other people fully. Receiving grace is, I've made a mistake, I'm sorry, and letting somebody love you regardless of all your mistakes. And letting God love you even though you're imperfect. And then with that, your heart gets filled up, and then you can offer that to other people. Because how many people do you know that feel unworthy of love? And we want to help them. But our hearts aren't powerful enough to give that because they're not filled up with true love, because we're withholding grace from God, because we block it. This can come in the form of I've tried this many times. You can try this experiment if you want. Try to say something really nice to somebody in this room today and watch them go, oh, no. Watch. You're the coolest person ever. No. Oh, no. They start having a heart attack. It's crazy. Just accept compliments, guys. Whoa. Do you guys heard that too, right? That sounded like some crazy Lord of the Rings voice. To be able to receive grace is to love in all forms, right? Doesn't mean to keep it and to become arrogant. It just means to receive it and then pass it on. Receive it, pass it on. But this is a huge trap for people who are struggling with addictions or, especially with, just feelings of imperfection, is they refuse this, and so they negate this. So God's grace really wants to reach you, all of us. That gives us power. It gives us redemption. And substantial grace, to be honest, when I first joined this movement, it was 14 years ago, and I thought that I wouldn't be allowed in this movement because I was asked to give a confession to write it out, and actually, literally, when I was doing it, there was an earthquake. And I thought I caused the earthquake because my testimony was so terrible from all the stuff that I did. And so when I handed it in, I was shaking because I was like, this person's going to read this. And there's this guy named Shunichi-san. He's in Spirit World now. I love this guy. And I then went with my spiritual mom. We went out to go get some frozen yogurt. And I was like, they're going to reject me. I felt like I was applying for a job, and for sure I'm not going to get this job, And then I came back after some frozen yogurt, and I just looked at the guy, Shunichi-san, and he looked at me, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, forget about it. And I wept. I wept ceaselessly. I've never wept like that before. And it wasn't just tears from myself. It was something so much bigger than me. It was just like gushing. It was like projectile tears coming out of me. And I wept. And then, he was an older Japanese man, so he wasn't hugging me. He was just kind of like, like this. I really wanted to hug. I was like, I was melting in front of him. And he provided me with substantial grace. I needed to receive God's love from a person, from a person, okay? And we all do, continually. So it was really hard for me to, that was the first time I've really talked about all the stuff that I've ever done, and he accepted me, and he loved me. And we need to do this with our kids, guys. It's so hard because a part of us wants to strangle them, right, for doing some of the stuff that they do. But that, there's that element, and again, love the sinner, not the sin, but it's to reach beyond our reaction to want to just get so frustrated and to say, thank you for telling me. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you. And to give them that love. And we'll figure this out together. We'll figure it out. Because if you judge them in that moment, if you scold them in that moment, when their heart is so vulnerable and sensitive, that leaves an indelible scar in their heart. That's really damaging to a relationship, okay? So grace, to ask for it from real people and to give it is so fundamentally important. And integrity, okay? So integrity is when your thoughts and your words and your actions are all the same. This is really hard. It's really, really hard. It's a hard standard to maintain. But without that, we have no power because then our words go this way, our body goes this way, and then we're just a mess. You can't build anything that doesn't have structural integrity, including a life, okay? So our standards, let our standards and principles guide our path rather than our limitations. A lot of times, we saw this in True Parents a lot. Still to this day, they make some bold proclamation, hey, we're going to do this big thing, and everybody's like, oh, no, I don't think that's possible, right? That's us being guided by our limitations rather than trying to figure out how can we make that happen, right? But even sometimes we'll get an impulse to do something great, like this inspiration, I want to do this, and then these voices start coming in like, oh, you can't do that. Where are you going to get that money from? That's physically impossible, right? And so that becomes our limitation that guides us rather than our principles. A much better question than, like, can I do it or can't? Is like, well, what am I committed to, right? So you can absolutely live an amazing life, right? We've seen people go from really quite pathetic circumstances to really being free. And they shock themselves time and again. Like, how did I go from there to here? It's always possible, right? But you have to be committed to certain principles and a certain vision for your life. So to do the things you say you will allows you the freedom to do anything you say that you will. When you have that habit, I don't know how this is going to happen maybe, but I'm going to do it. It gives you the freedom to do all sorts of amazing things. If you can conjure it in your mind and you can say it out loud, if you have integrity, it's going to be done one way or another. That's power. That's truly powerful. And we saw, it's unbelievable to go around and meet our movement because you're like, there's no way that this is possible. The type of people that join are impossible. These people would never normally hang out with each other, in all sorts of different countries, backgrounds, whatever. Impossible, but somehow it happened, right? And True Parents said it would happen, and it did. That's power. So courage is basically the lubricant that allows all these other things to happen. You cannot be honest unless you have courage to be honest, because it takes a lot of courage to confess when you make a mistake. It takes courage to stand up and say, I don't want to do this, but I said I was going to do it, and do it because you said you were going to do it. That takes courage, because it's very easy to be lazy in this world. Our world, our culture celebrates mediocrity. So to be exceptional takes courage, okay? But courage is, we view it as, we view it as typically courage as like big acts of courage, like Superman, like, these heroic people that are in historical books, this kind of thing. But it's the small acts that make for the big acts. When we practice courage on a day-to-day basis, I could tell this person, I could be nice to them or I could tell them the truth. That's a small act, but it's a very defining act because you do that over time and that becomes your normal. That becomes who you are. That's your default, is courage. So when the big challenging things happen, like my wife's depression, I was at it. The weakest part of me is like, I'm done. I didn't sign up for this, right? But I had been practicing small acts of being a good person and a good husband, so I didn't quit on her. I wanted to. My body wanted to. My heart was shrunken and had enough, but I didn't because that's just not who I built myself up to be, right? Not because I'm great, but I just practice not being the kind of person who runs away from the stuff like that. But again, that's small acts. So if you find yourself in a situation where your life doesn't quite make sense, then you need to make small acts of practicing a new normal for yourself. Okay? Looking at yourself honestly takes a whole heap of courage, guys. Because we have stuff in our life that scares us. Like, how did I let that happen? But by ignoring it, if you go to the doctor, they're not a good doctor if they're like, well, I don't want to hurt your feelings by telling you the state of your health. Not a good doctor, right? Same with, we're not helping ourselves at all by ignoring our mistakes. So to look at ourselves honestly is vital, but it takes a lot of courage, right? I think I just explained that in great detail. So here, I'm ending here, guys, and I appreciate you listening. I like to tell more jokes and be that kind of guy, but this is not the time. I really want you to understand this because this is what we've been pouring ourselves into over the past few years. And this is what the most that we can offer from all of our effort is that if we enact honesty, grace, integrity, accountability, courage as a priority and really make these muscles strong in our life, in our marriage, in our faith, relationships, health, career, all the important stuff, then our life will absolutely, utterly transform into something that we're so proud of, something that's our offering to this world, offering to our Heavenly Parent, and offering to the future. Because right now, I think you can all tell that we're at this precipice where things can go either way. I keep on looking for like a definitive, like, what's the world going to look like in 10 years? And nobody knows. Because we're in uncharted territory, right? It could really go either way. But if we have enough people who are doing this, then things will work out in the end for sure. Because that's the high noon culture upon which Chanoguk will be built. And so high noon, a lot of people think, we don't have time for high noon because we're doing witnessing or we're doing, no. Apply high noon culture to witnessing, to ACLC, to W. I just gave a talk, 2 talks with Women's Federation up in Canada. This stuff applies to every facet of our lives. And when it is applied well, you all of a sudden start to gain a lot of power, a lot of courage, all the things that I'm sure Dr. Young is talking about. If you enact this stuff, it just amplifies your results. They're inevitable, okay? Does this make sense? This is very stressful for me because it's 6 years of stuff that I'm trying to explain in a short while. So I'm done. Are you speaking to the FBI? You're speaking to your jacket. That's very scandalous. Last thing I'm going to talk about is the North Star goal. So if you ever want to know any of these concepts more in depth, we have a podcast, and you can go to highnoon.org. The North Star goal is something that we started prioritizing a couple years ago, and that is where are you going to allocate your emotion, your hopes, your dreams, the essence of yourself. What are you going to pour yourself into? Because that is you giving birth to something. You're giving life to something. And I think we inadvertently, unconsciously, give the best of ourselves to useless stuff. Our phones often take so much of our time, even though it doesn't give us very much back at all, right? Videos, stuff that's just requiring a lot of energy but doesn't return any dividends. So the North Star goal is taking the time to really envision how you'd love to give the best of yourself to something, to some area of your life. Could be your family, could be some sense of mission, could be career, whatever. But to consciously give the best of yourself to something, and that will occupy your senses to such an extent that it materializes into something truly beautiful, okay? And without that in your life, you'll watch so much of your energy and so much of your essence kind of just escape you. Like a giant building like this, how much heat escapes a building like this? I was thinking about this. It's so hard to heat sufficiently a room like this because there's, so many windows and stuff like that. There's a lot that leaks out. And in our life, if you're not conscious, so much of the best of us, the spirit, the heart, and all this leaks out because we're thinking about stuff that doesn't really matter, that we can't control. We're thinking about people who have hurt us, and we're feeding this narrative that's not helping us. Rather than, oh wait, what am I committed to building in this life? Like, what am I really going to live and die for? And without that, we lack the power that God really wants to give us to create results that we can't even fathom, okay? So that's what we've observed. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, again, Uncle David said we're giving a talk to parents and children, kids 10 and up, with their parents about sexuality at 1 p.m. upstairs. This is Core of the Universe book. You're going to talk a little bit about it, but it's True Parents Quotes about sexuality. And it's created in a way, chapter by chapter, you read as a family. And then there's questions that you can discuss so you can go and talk about the things that we're afraid to talk about for some reason in a comfortable way together with God, okay? So this is for sale over there. If you need anything, I'll be here all day. And thank you for this. Sincerely, thank you for inviting us. And even if you didn't, for not, protesting outside to prevent us from coming. And we hope this was helpful in some way. Thank you.
Let's give another hand to Andrew Love. I really love that. North Star goal. What is your North Star goal? The goal that is all-encompassing of who you are, where you're headed. And that's something I'll start to use in my own vision building. Thank you so much. At this time, let's just take a few minutes, 2 minutes, to reflect on the questions. Am I living a life in the high noon? Am I living a life of integrity, honesty, grace, courage, and accountability? Let's take 2 minutes to reflect on that. If you haven't already switched, please start switching. If you haven't started sharing, please start sharing with your partner next to you. Are you living a life in the high noon? A life of integrity, honesty, grace, courage, and accountability. Let's bring it back into the room. Let's bring it back. I know there's a whole lot to talk about, but right after this, you can go downstairs for some fellowship and continue on the conversation. We'd like you to continue this on past today, obviously, into the weeks and years to come. Just to remind yourself of the 5 pillars of High Noon. One thing I really loved was just integrity, right? Something Andrew said was, if you don't live an integrous life, if you don't do what you say you do, how can the spirit world trust you? Fundamentally, if I want God to trust me, I have to do what I say I'll do. And that way, that's an incredible way to just mobilize spirit world, to support you in any effort that you do, by trusting in yourself and consequently having the world trust you. So thanks so much, Andrew. We're going to go now into our benediction. So I'd like to invite up Pastor, actually right before that, the books are available outside. That's right. I forgot to mention. If you are interested in the High Noon principles, Uncle Dave Wolfenberger wrote a book called Core of the Universe. Core of the Universe, the principles, everything is in there. It's a whole lot about God's vision for love, sex, and intimacy. This is for anyone, and it's also available in Japanese. In Japanese, Uchu no kon. Sorry about that. It's also available in Japanese as well. It's available for sale right there at Eriko-san's desk. If you'd like to get a copy, this is a great book, a phenomenal book, and this is also part of what Andrew was speaking off of, the content of this book, Core of the Universe, or I believe Uchu no Kondon, something like Konbon. Uchu no Konbon, there we go, right outside for you afterwards. With that, I'd like to close off by inviting up our assistant pastor, Atushi Takino, to close out with a prayer.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. And I really, that creating the culture, that's really I want, and we are so inspired. I'm so inspired, creating the culture. And because the culture beyond the border, any border, we not just want to create in the nice unification church building. We like to create a building, the culture. That's I believe the Pastor Naokimi talk about how we can create a blessed family culture. That's the very beginning of this month. He shared in the message during the Sunday service. And that's why that I'm so inspired through parent teaching. We want, always we talk, the true parent talk about going back to origin. And these 5 elements, or important of the High Noon culture, is our origin. Original nature is inspiring these points. Not just how to, or know how, or teaching the technique, or skill. The beyond that, what kind of the person I want to be. That's a starting point, what kind of the vision I want to see, or how I can contribute to see that vision. So thank you, Andrew. Then that's why that we like to create a culture, nobody's shame, or something, even some mistake or something happen in my life, in my family, but still, my brothers and sisters love me. God love me. Because I had experienced so many times, why they didn't tell us? Why I can't help you more earlier? That kind of experience I have many times since Pastor Crescente also sharing me a lot. If we knew more earlier, we can do more, something help them. But always we try to hide. Because if I tell that, they actually judging me, or I'm so ashamed, my face is wrong, or that you are not able type people, you are Cain type people, something like that. Right? But we want to break through that culture. We want to create a culture, everybody open, and you don't have to shame. That's why origin through parent teaching is important, because we know we are come from where. And eventually where we want to go back. So, and to my understanding, the key point of the High Noon culture or blessed family culture, never give up. No matter that we fail, 10 times, but or collapse 10 times, but still we walk, stand up 11 times. Japanese, that's a nanakorobi aoki. You know, that kind of that's the only way we can win. You know, don't lose our hope. Don't lose our vision. Okay, thank you. So next week, we have a beautiful Sunday service. Dr. Yon wanna see. Then we wanna practice. We wanna share our best to our brothers and sisters, our God. So we're going to set up the offering table here, and anybody bring the best, or this is my best cake. This is my, I wanna give this my like a bread for somebody, for God and the brothers and sisters. You can bring here. We're going to set up the table here, and you can bring here. And we like to create a best harvest offering table here before you come to 10 o'clock. Once you come late a little bit, then we're going to set up the table also downstairs. You can offer that. But we want to create a beautiful offering table in our chapel. Okay, thank you. So please join me in prayer. Be most loved Heavenly parent, our true parents. Today, we learned what our original heart and what kind of the culture we want to create. Most of the brothers and sisters joined our movement because of such a culture, original culture we want to create. And true parents guiding us, who is God? What's the culture God wants to create with us? And He never give up. He never stopped His vision, His dream. Heavenly parents, we never stop. We never give up. We want to create, no matter what happens, no matter how long it takes, whole my life, we want to invest and we want to create such a beautiful culture in our New Jersey and America and the world. And this is our best gift for true parents, for God. I really appreciate every time, beautiful Sunday, brothers and sisters coming here, and we are learning a lot of things from you, God, and we love each other. And this week, Thanksgiving week, we really want to appreciate to God, our families, our neighbors, and our life. And we come back next Sunday. I pray report this. My name, Atsushi Takino, Namiko Takino, President of the family. Adieu.
Thank you, Pastor Takino. And just like he said, next week is going to be our Thanksgiving service once again. So please bring your best harvest for our Thanksgiving service. And of course, Thursday is also a Thanksgiving celebration, an open mic night. If you ever wanted to perform in front of people, you wanted to sing, you wanted to dance or do anything, that's happening on Thursday as well. But now we're going to go into our closing song and our offering. Now's your time to offer your tithe. The boxes are up here, but now I'd like to pass it on to our choir to close out.
사랑해 당신을
feel free to stand along and sing. Yeah, 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 yeah. Sisters, thank you for joining us for Sunday service. As a reminder, 1 o'clock, we have our high noon program in the Magnolia Room. The books are being sold outside. We have some refreshments downstairs. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. God bless you.